Hi, folks. I'm Kelly Coleffel, your host. Every other week, we'll bring you insightful interviews with some of the brightest minds across the data community. We will be covering topics such as AI and ML, enterprise data and analytics, cloud migrations, data culture, a whole lot more. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Frank Carotenuto. He is Senior Director of Enterprise Data Platforms at Trellix. Frank has more than 10 years of experience in data engineering. He began his career at Nielsen, advanced to leadership roles at Foot Locker and Iron Mountain. Now at Trellix, he leads data platform architecture and strategy. He's currently overseeing a pivotal cloud data platform migration. His expertise is in spearheading migrations to cloud-based solutions and then seamlessly integrating the cloud services and technologies like Azure Databricks, Apache Arrow, and Google Cloud. Frank, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Welcome in.
Likewise. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Spend a couple of seconds and review Trellix for us, and then also your role at Trellix.
We have about 40,000 customers, about $1.7 billion in revenue. And that is because we're actually the merger of two other entities. So you might be more familiar with McAfee or FireEye. I joined Trellix back in 2022 to lead our enterprise data platform. And as you mentioned, we were immediately embarked on a pretty sizable roadmap to modernize our data stack. There are three primary teams that make up our enterprise data platform. We have two data engineering teams, one focused almost exclusively on master data management, data quality, specific to our account base and our customer base. Another data engineering team focused on data acquisition, ETL, dimensional data modeling, and then a BI team that's focused on building out explorable data sets and dashboards for our end users.
When you joined, were they formed up, or have you kind of crafted them over the last couple of years as you've been there?
They're under one umbrella, but they're three separate functions. I ended up splitting the data analytics services team to a team that's focused on data warehousing and a team that's focused on business intelligence. And the teams that we formed together ended up growing over time throughout last year and the year prior as we started to build a data platform and move away from more of a hub and spoke, where we were a hub or a distributor of data to multiple data marts throughout the organization, to a enterprise data platform. We started to acquire more teams, which ended up growing our existing ones.
I think of something like the data mesh concept, where I'm driving down accountability and responsibility around a particular data product or set of products into the business. How do you think about that at Trellix today?
Treating data as an enterprise asset is really foundational. Ensuring accuracy of your data, having data quality checks in place, having well-governed data sets, ensuring your data is compliant and compliant with regulations. And really only once you have this foundation, you can start to treat your data as a product. If your foundational data is flawed, your products are going to inherit those flaws. So by focusing on data as an asset first, you create a stronger foundation for building data products. When we shifted our focus last year to focus on building a data platform, one of the key things that we implemented to create self-service was to build out an enterprise semantic layer. We chose using Looker. We have our data warehouse team, our master data management team, and then that BI team. Their core, one of the core responsibilities that they have is building out those Looker explorers, those reusable data sets for all of our business to consume. And what that enterprise semantic layer, I'll demystify that a little bit. In lane terms, that's just LookML. It just predefines all of your join conditions across all of your data sets in your data warehouse or data lake. Essentially, what that's doing is doing all the heavy lifting for your end user. They don't have to know how a measure is calculated because the definition is baked into your enterprise semantic layer. You don't need to know how to join data sets across different systems or even centralize the data because it's already done. Same with data quality checks and things like that. It's all in place.
Where are you going as it relates to cloud migration and cloud modernization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most cloud migrations, if your motives are well, if you understand why you're going to cloud, I think that's what's the foundation of a successful migration. So we focused on all aspects of our data stack, everything from data acquisition to how we process our data to how we present it to our customers, ultimately our stakeholders. So the first thing was that we made a bit of a paradigm shift, right? So we went from an ETL based solution with Informatica, where Informatica did all the data acquisition, it did all the data processing, and then it persisted just what was then used, the output, right, to an ELT model where using solutions Fivetran specifically to synchronize all of our data to our data platform on BigQuery. And then instead of doing the transformations outside of the warehouse, we did the transformations within the warehouse using dbt. Now, a lot of value comes out of this, right? So for one, we can increase the cadence at which we acquire the data. It could be, with Fivetran every couple of minutes. Being able to synchronize full data sets to our data platform offered us agility as well. In my experience, quote unquote, lift and shift is the most effective way to truly migrate. When you're talking about migrating a data analytics platform that is built over, not lift and shift from just taking your Informatica appliance, throw it in the cloud, but in terms of all of your ETL pipelines, your dimensional data model, taking that in its entirety is not a bad move. But in terms of the reports that you have to recreate on top of that, then I think that's where you can start to chip away at, is this dashboard still relevant? Are people using it? Are they using it for the right purposes?
Yeah, if you take a lift and shift approach, usually I think about that as having a little bit less risk, obviously, than, let's just blow everything up and redo it. Less risk and usually shorter time. What I like about that too, like if you have let's say a business unit comes up with a new requirement that's not part of the current architecture or platform or solution, hey, start piecing that in under the approach you eventually want to get to once that lift and shift has been completely modernized.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're going through your migration, you're going to have new demand come in. You can't put the pen down for, 6 to 9 months as you're going through migration. You have to continue to deliver. So it is certainly important to have your architectural patterns in place and established first, and then migrate towards those. But what you don't want to do is just rebuild every solution. Yeah. You don't want to start with your end products and try to reproduce them. From my experience, what you'll end up with is you'll have your cloud environment, your net new data platform, but then you'll still have your legacy, maybe on-prem data platform that's still running the business, that's still essential to the business. And now you have two separate teams doing two separate things, and you never have the ability to consolidate. So the lift and shift is critical, but it's also really critical to have those architectural patterns in place so you can support those new use cases.
How do you keep continued alignment with the organizational objectives that you have, your data program objectives, and then the ongoing objectives and business KPIs that Trellix has?
When we started our enterprise data platform initiative and centralizing many of the analytics teams, that we didn't want to break down, we didn't want to silo off that communication with our business units. We ended up forming an adjacent team to our enterprise data platform, and we call it the Data Council. And the uniqueness in this approach really lies in the composition of the team. We selectively sought a representation from every business unit, someone who might have been a previous leader of the analytics team that was focused exclusively on maybe customer success or finance or sales operations. And we appointed them as a data product owner. And they would effectively continue with their role and be immersed in their day-to-day operations, but they would also serve as the conduit to funnel new demand and prioritization to our team. Their day-to-day would still be, they'll stay immersed in their business unit, but they would also be responsible for understanding what their needs are, translating that into, a data product, and then breaking that down into our functional teams. So like an example, like if new demand were to come in, they would assess whether or not that would require new data acquisition, and they would funnel certain demand into the data warehousing team to go get that data. If all data is available, they would just work with the BI team to build out a new dashboard or some reverse ETL pipeline to funnel data into an application or something like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that domain expertise obviously will vary function to function to function. I would think that maybe a common thread on that data council is that pretty much everybody's got to be pretty passionate about what data can do for their individual business unit as well.
Absolutely. You'd be surprised by how much of the data needs across different organizations align. Like the needs of sales, product, and finance, there are a lot of the same needs. So, when we ended up consolidating our data teams into a single COE, into a single enterprise data platform team, they didn't lose the ability to individually prioritize. What we gained is, the ability to reduce duplicative effort because we're able to align across those business units.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you think about data council, but even outside of that, what skills for you, what's most valuable for building a data team? What do you look for this year in 2024 as you're hiring or growing or just trying to help your individual team improve as it stands right now?
There's different avenues in which people enter the data engineering space, and none of them there's no bad one. I typically like to see somebody with object-oriented programming background. They don't have to have it, but it's a very valuable skill, or any programming language really. Having a CS background is pretty advantageous, specifically because like for data warehousing, for example, our data warehousing team. You might need to build a bespoke API solution, either for another team to consume data off the platform or to retrieve data from another service. And having that skill in-house in the team creates that autonomy for us. Even some a solid foundation in programming, obviously SQL skills. But sometimes I even like to see whenever I see like networking skills. I like that because you'd be surprised how often that's used on a team. If specifically with building data integrations, under being able to troubleshoot a connectivity to a server. I always say that establishing connectivity to an application is like 80% of an integration, specifically with solutions like Fivetran. You really boil it down to establishing a connection. And then lastly, what's really evolved quite a bit is a lot of the more modern data applications, like if you juxtapose Informatica versus, Airflow and DBT, in Looker, a lot of these are a code base, a structured code base. So having DevOps skills, CI/CD, deployment automation, version control skills, those are pretty important when we're looking to build a team.
So translating, I'll call it professional software development skills into that data space is something that you really value.
Absolutely.
Cool. What about for somebody that's looking to move into a data leadership role? What in your experience, what's most important to have from a quality standpoint when you lead a data team?
You really have to constantly check that the metrics you produce or the measures you produce are still relevant to a business need. You have to constantly keep yourself in check that the measure that you have has a strong correlation to the outcome that you're using that metric for. Because it's, you can reduce a lot of wasted effort.
This has been outstanding, Frank. I thank you so much for joining the show, and I'm looking forward to keeping up with everything that you're doing at Trellix.
Awesome. Great chatting with you.
Yeah, fantastic. And for everybody who listened in today, thank you so much. We appreciate each one of you. We'd encourage you to subscribe to the podcast on any of the major platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, and others. You can also find us on YouTube, and then, of course, visit us at fivetran.com/podcast. Please send us any feedback or comments at podcast@fivetran.com. We would absolutely love to hear from you. See you soon. Take care.